What if Revan became Emperor, not Palpatine? Let's explore the depths of it in the video. Revan observes the private stronghold from his position on a nearby hill. He watches them work before making his way down, marching onto the makeshift barricades that were laid out before them. As he gets closer, a sentry alerts the pirates inside, who all hurry out with their blasters ready. Revan stops and allows them to surround him, as their leader brandishes an electro-staff.
All right, that's far enough. We've had enough business dealing with laser sword-wielding maniacs today.
Fair enough. Consider this a down payment.
He reaches for his credits and drops them to the ground.
A down payment for what, exactly?
Why, for all the good you're about to do for me. It seems like you'll need the money to repair your fortress. Were they Jedi or Sith?
Sith. Two horny-headed men. They tried to make off with my men. Can you believe that?
Really? Madness. They only tried to get a few of you instead of the whole army?
And what are you getting at, Jedi?
Just a statement of facts. You men are skilled if you were able to fight two Sith, but you've also fallen on hard times. Do you think those will pass? The war is drawing to a close, and you may find yourself experiencing greater scrutiny unless you have powerful friends.
Like you? And yet you stand here alone.
The ancient Jedi smiles in response, and suddenly a dozen blaster shots flicker out from behind, knocking the blaster out of a dozen pirates' hands. HK-47 steps out from behind a boulder, holding a smoking blaster that he brandishes around, daring anyone else to challenge him.
If you don't believe my strength, then let's make a wager. I will give you HK-47, my servant droid, to help you in your business. If you do not see triple profits in a month, you can keep him. And this. But if you do, well then you may want to consider my offer.
He takes his lightsaber from his belt and absently tosses it in the air. Hondo stares at the weapon with hungry eyes, already picturing himself with that weapon. The pirate captain readily agrees to the deal.
Warning. Very well, Master. I will serve the dirty meatbags, but if you ever refer to me as a servant droid again, I will be forced to murder you in your sleep.
Love you too, buddy.
True to his word, HK-47 proves to be a useful asset to the Hondo Anaka gang. Revan secretly loaded him up with a list of potential targets, from rich merchants, transports from large corporations, and ships from rival gangs. But aside from that, HK-47 proves to be a deadly fighter on his own. This provides them with a sudden windfall of weapons, credits, spice, and other commodities that Hondo can use to rebuild his base. All while Revan watches from a distance, observing his progress. By the end of the month, Hondo and his crew managed to get more than 5 times what they usually find in the time, leaving them fully in favor of the alliance with Revan.
All right, you made your point. I've never been one to choke on pride when there is profit in the air. You want to work with us? All right, just tell me what your plan is.
As I said in our first meeting, the war is drawing to a close, and after that, piracy will soon become more difficult. We must be prepared to alter our strategy.
What do you suggest? Going legit? Becoming privateers for one side? The Republic is looking like it will win.
No, I don't think so. There is more going on than meets the eye. I believe if we are to survive, it must be on our faction, one strong enough to stand against the victor. Will you follow me?
You helped us rebuild our base. I suppose we owe you.
Response. This base is just the beginning. What my master proposes is creating a third faction.
As the pirates continue their raids, Revan continues looking at the maps of the war, studying battles across the galaxy. While most are done by droids and clones, those do not interest him. Instead, he focuses on those in between, planetary forces and local resistance groups who have their agendas. Although the CIS ostensibly claims to be fighting for independence, the real power is with the CIS Council, who are more interested in exploitation than liberty. Meanwhile, even worlds loyal to the Republic chafe under its rule. Revan has Hondo and HK-47 launch raids on these places with large planetary forces and requisition some of the loot taken by Hondo. Rather than let these weapons gather dust in the armories, he sends them out to different resistance cells, putting them to good use. It soon bears fruit as groups of Ryloth, Onderon, and Quarzite offer to forge ties with Revan. Perhaps his most ambitious target, though, is Umbara, which had attempted to leave the Republic but was forcibly reconquered. However, pockets of resistance remain. Revan discreetly sends them money and aid. In exchange, he requests weapons and researchers. He provides them with asylum off-world so they can secretly gather allies and weapons, but in exchange, they must share this technology with Revan and his growing army. The Umbarans do not provide their full technology, though, simply upgrading Revan's existing equipment, allowing their ships to go faster, and using their holographic controls along with some of their lesser technology, like Millicreep Droid. With this technology, some groups like Saw Gerrera can secure their planets completely. Even with this success, Revan cannot help but sense the growing darkness within the Republic. It is like a dark shroud that hovers over them, making it hard to truly see what is going on. One thing is clear, though. Something is going to change soon, and Revan must be prepared. But Revan isn't the only one trying to create their factions. Within the underworld, there are whispers of a new organization, one trying to unite the largest crime families into a single empire. The Black Suns and Pikes have already joined with a leader named Maul. When Hondo hears this, he is furious and explains that Maul was the man who tried to steal his pirates from him. To his surprise, Revan finds this amusing.
Well then, I guess it's time for him to face a real Sith Lord.
Rather than try to fight them for dominance, Revan decides to try diplomacy first. He sends HK-47 ahead to secure a meeting with Maul and Savage outside Jabba's palace. They arrive just as Maul and Pre Vizsla are planning his next move. Revan arches a brow as he hears a bit of the Night Brothers' plan. It is bold to use Mandalore as a base to create a criminal empire and gather all the neutral systems in Satine's faction.
I must admit, I am impressed. It is an ambitious plan, one that can create an empire unlike any other.
The ancient hero himself. Revan, I am honored to meet you. Although I am surprised that you wish to join forces with us.
Well, it seems we share the same goal. To create a third faction that can reduce the Separatists and the Republic into second-rate powers.
True, but Sith do not typically cooperate. It is why the rule of two exists. Will you allow my apprentice to live?
Aye, but it's a foolish rule in this situation. Two are excellent to plot and wage a shadow war, but not run an empire. Keep your apprentice, but do not begrudge me for taking my own in the future. However, I do have a price. Mandalore. I want it as my base. You can take the other systems in this block.
You do not start small when it comes to favor. Very well. I will allow it and provide you with information on my master's plans. In exchange, I want whatever technology the Umbarans have provided you.
What of Vizsla? Leave him to me.
The three Sith Lords smile at one another as they begin their next move. The invasion of Mandalore begins from the shadows. The criminals they've gathered strike across the capital, capturing key infrastructure, overwhelming the police force, and destabilizing the government. Maul and Revan plot from the shadows, not just with Mandalore, but for the galaxy. To prevent any suspicion from Pre Vizsla, Revan and HK-47 are placed in prison, something Satine is more than happy to accept. Maul reveals the Sith Grand Plan, including the identity of his master. Satine is forced to step down and relinquish power to Pre Vizsla, who takes over and restores the warrior culture. However, his rule is short-lived, as HK-47 soon breaks out Maul and Savage from prison. Pre Vizsla mobilizes Death Watch to search for them, leaving the palace virtually unguarded. Here, Revan strikes as an explosion rips through the palace, courtesy of Saw Gerrera. This draws the guards out just as several Millicreeps emerge through the smoke and electrocute them. Mandalorians scream and drop to the ground, and from the chaos, Revan and HK-47 march out. The few guards who rush out to meet them quickly fall before the pair.
Query. Does this remind you of old times, Master?
Oh yeah.
With one final push, he throws the guards back and enters the throne room, where Vizsla is waiting with his darksaber ready. Bo-Katan and their other lieutenants aim, but Revan raises his hand.
Stand down. This is a fight between me and him. I invoke the ancient Mandalorian custom of trial by combat.
Very well. He takes one big leap and powers up his jetpack, raining blaster fire on Revan. These attacks are easily parried as Revan counters by trying to slash at him in midair. Vizsla slides out of the way and activates his flamethrower. The ancient Jedi redirects the flames and hurls his lightsaber at him. Vizsla barely sidesteps the attack and hurls a grenade onto the floor. Revan uses the Force to absorb the attack and tries to attack again, though Vizsla remains out of his reach. Instead, Revan is forced to dodge explosives as debris is thrown up. However, he uses the Force to lift these dust particles and hurl them at Vizsla. While it doesn't hurt the Death Watch leader, it does short out his jetpack and leave him tumbling to the ground. Growling, Vizsla raises his lightsaber and rushes at him, but Revan holds his ground and channels the Force onto him, making his presence more imposing and letting the fear and doubt cloud Vizsla's mind. When he looks up again, Revan looks like a giant, and his attack falters for a moment. But it is enough for the ancient Sith being, who swings his sword and takes off his head. Revan takes the darksaber and holds it up in the air.
I am the ruler of Mandalore.
Unsurprisingly, Bo-Katan and her followers refuse to accept an outsider, beating a hasty retreat while Revan takes his place. He does send HK-47 to finish them off. Surprisingly, one of Revan's first moves is to pardon Satine and release her from custody. He explains that he does not wish to simply destroy the existing government, but to enact some of its policies. As someone with no attachments to Mandalorian culture, he sees the pragmatism in Satine's ideas. The society built solely on war cannot survive, so he allows her to run the government's healthcare, education, and other domestic tasks, while he handles military matters. At first, Satine is incredulous and refuses to work with Revan, but he secretly informs her about his visions, and then reveals the Sith grand plan and how all of this is necessary for the future. While she can't ever agree with what Revan has planned, his words do have the intended effect, and she at least agrees to work with him temporarily, but is sworn to secrecy, as Revan does not want any of this to get out. Just in time, too, as Maul's success does catch Palpatine's ear, who decides to confront them. Palpatine strides into the throne room on Mandalore, his dark cloak billowing behind him as he confronts Maul and Savage Opress. The two brothers look out in surprise, but their crimson blades ignite as Palpatine smirks. With a flick of his wrist, his twin lightsabers spring to life. He launches himself at the brothers, a blur of speed and precision. Savage roars, meeting Palpatine's ferocious assault. Maul comes from the other side, his saber staff slashing across the ground as he barrels forward while Savage swings at his head. Palpatine runs into these attacks, spinning through them and then parrying the backswing. He pushes Savage back first and begins to rain attacks on him, his lightsaber a blur and leaving Savage barely able to block. Seeing his opponent gaining the upper hand, Maul swings from behind, but Palpatine twists his head aside and turns to face him. He crosses his lightsabers and blocks the saber staff. When Maul tries to twist and stab at his stomach, Palpatine jerks his blade up and spoils his shot, shoving him back with the Force just in time to leap over Savage's blow and kick him across the head. While he stumbles, Palpatine slams him against the throne.
A failed apprentice makes for a foolish master.
Palpatine disarms Savage with a brutal strike and hurls him across the room with a blast of Force lightning. Maul, left alone, grits his teeth, but then smiles. Suddenly, the air shifts. A powerful presence emerges, the Force trembling in its wake. Revan steps into the chamber, his figure imposing. Without a word, Revan ignites his lightsaber, its violet glow cutting through the dim light. Palpatine turns, his glee replaced by unease.
Revan.
Revan doesn't say anything, simply advancing toward him with quiet discipline. Snarling, Palpatine unleashes a flurry of attacks on Revan, his movements flashing as the lightsaber strokes are nearly undetectable with the naked eye. Despite that, the former Sith Lord has no problem blocking them. His movements are practically instinctual, as he seems to know exactly where Palpatine's lightsaber strikes will be. Suddenly, he unleashes a wave of the Force. Palpatine flies back and lands on his feet. Smiling under his helmet, he advances and unleashes his attack. Palpatine blocks the first few strikes, but they quickly speed up and fall with unnatural speed that leaves him starting to struggle. Palpatine tries to break the deadlock and goes low. Revan leaps above this attack and kicks him across the face. He follows with a slash that nearly takes Palpatine's head off, who must throw himself back onto the ground. Savage recovers and rejoins the fight alongside Maul. But it is Revan who has his attention. Each footstep is like thunder as he advances on him. Revan absently twirls his lightsaber as his eyes are fixed on him. Desperately, Palpatine attacks once again, but these fall short. A well-timed blast of Force energy sends the Sith Lord sprawling. Realizing he cannot win, Palpatine snarls and unleashes a final wave of lightning to cover his escape. He vanishes into the shadows, retreating in panic. As he escapes onto his ship, Palpatine reassesses the threat Revan poses. Back on Coruscant, he convenes with the Senate, urging immediate action against Mandalore. The fall of Mandalore is now common knowledge, and he paints Maul and Savage's presence as a threat to galactic stability, demanding Republic intervention. His rhetoric is persuasive, stirring fear among the senators. He reminds them that just a few years ago, the CIS nearly took over, but this threat is something they cannot ignore, especially as there are reports of other crime syndicates allying themselves with Maul.
I urge the good Senate to take immediate action and stop this threat before it becomes impossible to control.
I disagree.
The Senate goes silent as they see Satine step forward, her expression resolute, but her eyes seem conflicted.
I have said it once and I shall say it again. Mandalore is neutral. I understand the fear the Senate has for stability, but I have just arrived from Mandalore and I can assure you we have the situation under control.
Duchess, while I admire your conviction, surely you can see the emergence of a criminal empire as no idle threat, especially given your pacifist government.
I see no such problem. The Republic was happy to ignore the threat of criminals in the past. This should be no different. As for dealing with them, it is with great reluctance that I have allowed the rearmament of the Mandalorian warriors. The general in charge shall make short work of them.
These words are enough to appease the Senate, who are happy to focus their troops on the war effort instead of having to free Mandalore. True to his words, the criminals soon leave Mandalore, though not because of any military success. As promised, Maul relinquishes the planet to Revan and instead moves his base to Obadiah. But Palpatine is seething and his frustration growing. His decisions become more erratic as he grows paranoid about the threat Revan poses. Even his closest allies take notice, and one of them, Sly Moore, secretly contacts Revan as she believes he will become the dominant power in the galaxy. She gives him full access to their technology to arm his fleet and army. This comes at an opportune time, as Palpatine secretly orders Dooku to attack Mandalore. The CIS forces mobilize a massive droid army and fleet, but this is where Revan's militias come in. As many are opposed to CIS dominance, especially with the CIS Council, they begin to sabotage the invasion force, attacking their staging grounds and bombing their factories. This invasion force must then contend with Hondo's fleet and HK-47's relentless guerrilla campaign. Now armed with Umbaran technology, even the ragtag militias can bloody the nose of the CIS war machine. When at last the fleet does arrive, it is now whittled down and war-weary. But still, the dropships land, and the Mandalorians rush to engage them. Many former Death Watch members are eager to avenge their defeat at the hands of the droid forces. They lead the charge, their jetpacks roaring as they dive into the thick of battle. Basilisk war droids, relics of the Mandalorians' ancient glory, rise from hidden bunkers to wreak havoc on the descending ships, ripping through their thin armor and scattering their escorts. Blaster fire lights up the sky as Mandalorians engage the droids. Amidst the chaos, HK-47 appears on the battlefield, leading a squad of elite guerrilla fighters armed with Umbaran technology. The heavy Umbaran tanks and starfighters support the Mandalorian fighters and wipe out entire squads of droids.
Observation. These droids are terribly ill-prepared to face the chosen meatbags of my master's army. Commentary. Let us improve their miserable existence by ending it.
He and his team sabotage key Confederate landing sites, turning the terrain into a death trap for droids. Their hit-and-run tactics sow confusion, and entire columns of battle droids fall apart under coordinated ambushes. But as he finishes destroying a landing craft, he feels a shape behind him. General Grievous. He carved through Mandalorian warriors. HK-47 moves to intercept him.
Who are you?
Response. I'm you, but better. I'm the original Jedi killer.
Grievous rushes to attack, but HK-47 pulls out a sonic blaster that Grievous cannot block against. Instead, it sends him sliding back. He rolls a pair of bombs under the cyborg, who leaps up to avoid them and kicks the assassin droid back. HK-47 rights himself and returns fire with a sonic emitter that causes Grievous to jerk his head back in pain. HK-47 follows up another sonic round, but Grievous is prepared and leaps over it. He lands on top of the droid and slams him to the ground, his clawed foot wrapping around his neck. But HK-47's arm jerks back and fires his sonic blaster and allows him to rise once more, at least until Grievous's lightsabers flash and sever one of his arms.
Sarcastic cry. Stop. Stop. Make it stop, please. Are those the words you wish to hear, artificial meatbag?
Snarling, Grievous severs his legs when HK-47 tries to kick him, but as they tumble to the ground, Grievous looks down at the droid and chuckles.
You are defeated. I have become the ultimate Jedi killer.
Retort. And yet you are still as predictable as any meatbag. Response. Though you are less of a machine than me, you are still part machine, which means you share my weaknesses.
HK-47 suddenly pulls out an EMP grenade.
Hopeful thought. The difference is, my master will reactivate me, but no one is coming for you. Hondo Anaka sends his regards.
The grenade goes off and both of them short-circuit, but as Grievous falls to the ground, the last thing he sees is a squad of Mandalorian warriors rushing to his position. As the droid armies are being pushed back, Dooku enters the city alone, leaving command to the tactical droid as he was given clear instructions to deal with Revan, by whatever means necessary. It doesn't matter if he lost this battle or not, it is just a matter of killing him. So while he allowed the Mandalorians to be distracted, Dooku approaches the main courtyard of Sundari, allowing the Force to guide him. Revan stands under a tree, examining his darksaber.
So, you're the new apprentice. And you are the esteemed Revan. I admit, I have always wished to meet you, although I never thought it would go like this. Funny how the Force works. Although, we don't truly have to fight. Unfortunately, I have my duty.
Dooku ignites his crimson blade, his posture elegant and refined. Revan offers a respectful nod as he draws his darksaber. Before he can close in, Dooku unleashes a storm of force lightning. Revan raises his weapon to block it, but it isn't directed towards him. Instead, it strikes the tree and begins sending it crashing down. Revan dives out of the way just as Dooku rushes at him. His movements are graceful but measured, careful to avoid overextending himself, yet the attacks remain fluid. Revan blocks each one and can tell he is dealing with a master. He sidesteps and dodges each move. But the mastery of techniques isn't enough. As he deflects an attack, Revan goes on the offensive, unleashing a pattern of strikes unfamiliar to Dooku. The Count tries to analyze the pattern as he defends. Revan doesn't give him much time for that, as his movements remain erratic, each one coming closer. Dooku begins to realize there is no clear pattern and unleashes a shockwave to throw Revan back. While it sends him leaping back, it only delays him. He immediately goes on the offensive again, but Dooku is moving too, his own lightsaber thrusting forward. With his other hand, he pulls the burning remains of the tree towards Revan. The embers singe his cloak, and some even get into his armor, burning the flesh underneath. Revan hisses in pain, and Dooku takes the chance to leap forward, his lightsaber flashing as he strikes him across the side. Dooku pulls back and prepares to strike again. Revan looks up and redirects the blow with the Force. His fist comes up in an uppercut that throws Dooku back. As he stumbles to the ground, Revan looms over him, his darksaber coming down in a blur of lights. The Count struggles to halt the dark blade until, at last, he feels his lightsaber fly from his hand and into Revan's, who holds both weapons against his throat.
Finish me then. Now, why would I do that? when you are so much more useful to me alive?
He suddenly deactivates the weapons and offers a hand. The victory at Mandalore is a crippling blow to the CIS, but one even worse for Dooku. Through Satine, she reports Dooku's confession of working with Palpatine and all the necessary evidence. She takes this as a step further and orders Palpatine must be tried and imprisoned. At first, the Chancellor is defiant, until Revan himself makes an appearance in the Senate building. His presence alone makes it clear that he has lost. He reluctantly agrees and allows himself to be arrested, but rather than elect a new Chancellor, Revan declares that the fact that the Sith were able to infiltrate the highest echelons of the Republic without being detected speaks volumes to its weakness. The same goes with the Jedi, who were helpless pawns. Instead, he urges that strong leadership be elected there and now to stabilize the galaxy. With the CIS collapsing, they need it now more than ever to dissuade further rebellion. The Senate is won over, and soon makes Revan the leader, who promptly declares a galactic empire. To everyone's surprise, Revan starts by offering mercy. He spares the Jedi and allows them to exist, albeit only as peacekeepers and scattered across the galaxy to limit their political capabilities. While some like Mace Windu wish to fight, they know they have been outmaneuvered, as Revan has the Senate's backing and must accept defeat. By the time Revan is crowned Emperor, he rules an empire far vaster than even Palpatine could imagine. Maul's efforts bring in the Hutts and other criminals, while Dooku helps ensure the CIS's loyalty.
That's our theory. The Star Wars universe is a galaxy filled with exciting stories and possibilities, and we love exploring them. If you want to accompany us on this journey to a galaxy far, far away, then please like, share, and subscribe to our channel.